We come into another question. The Asia Pacific contingent at the NATO talks includes Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Southern Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins. All four nations have expressed views that what has happened in Ukraine simply cannot happen in the Pacific. I read this cannot term as a should not. So since the bare facts of the four Pacific leaders in Vilnius, is it kind of a testament to NATO's interest in the Indo-Pacific and the focus on the challenges that China poses for the alliance? On that point, Stoltenberg looks to be in a lockstep with US President Biden, with the two pledging to strengthen NATO ties to the Pacific when they met at the White House last month. And the leaders of the four Pacific nations also seem to be striving for a united approach. So we can expect new alliances or trilateral security pact between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States called a UK-US to grow bigger. Am I wrong?
It was a question to me, Sorry, well, clearly we are seeing here that Japan is becoming much more militant, or became under the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and that line remains. South Korea, that has had very bad relations with Japan for a long time because of World War II, has now better relations with Japan than at any other time after World War II. And Australia has always been quite combative. You can say that New Zealand is following Australia. So these four countries are very closely ganging up with the United States now to quite another degree than we have seen. And of course, everybody's worried about likely Chinese expansionism. And the focus is now very much on Taiwan. Previously, it was the South Chinese islands. That is no longer an issue. And the big question in this puzzle, geopolitical puzzle, is India. To what extent will India join up with the West? The US is doing everything it can in order to get India on its side. Japan is also working hard. While India is a continent in its own right, and the Indians are very afraid of the Chinese, but Indian politics, I spent quite some time in India. Indian politics is very difficult and it's very self-absorbed, as you would expect from a country with 1.4 billion people. So this is the big question. How will India act?
My next question. Allies agreed to a package of 3 elements bringing Ukraine closer to NATO. This includes a new multi-year assistance program to facilitate the transition of the Ukrainian armed forces from Soviet era to NATO standards and help rebuild Ukraine's security and defense sector, covering critical needs like fuel, demining equipment, and medical supplies. Allies also agreed to establish the new governing body, NATO-Ukraine Council. It has been reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and agree to remove the requirement of a Membership Action Plan, MAP. This is a strong package for Ukraine and a clear path towards its membership in NATO, said Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Allies adopted the most comprehensive defense plan since the end of the Cold War, Mr. Stoltenberg said, designed to counter the alliance's 2 main threats, Russia and terrorism. The new regional plans provide for 300,000 troops at high readiness, including substantial air and naval combat power. Allies also approved a new defense production action plan to accelerate joint procurement, boost production capacity, and enhance allies' interoperability. To meet their defense needs, allies made an enduring commitment to invest a minimum of 2% of the GDP in defense. European allies and Canada recorded an 8.3 real terms increase in their defense budgets in 2023, the largest increase in decades. 11 allies meet or exceed the benchmark this year, and this number is expected to grow substantially in 2024. Regarding this Vilnius summit, Professor, do you think that we're just promised thing and it's enough for Ukraine? We achieved our goal. If we are, say, we are Ukraine, should Zelensky say, it's all right, thank you very much? Or it could be done more? Should Ukraine demand more?
Ukraine demands more, and rightly so. I think that one can summarize the Vilnius summit in 2 points. The communique was very disappointing. Essentially, it did not take Ukraine application for membership of NATO further than we saw in Bucharest in 2008. It was a commitment that Ukraine will become a member of NATO sometime in future, unclear when, and the conditions for entry were not clarified. And in the end, it said allies must agree. And that means so there was no commitment in the communique for Ukraine becoming a member of NATO at any time. So that was the negative point. The positive point is that everybody seems to have been embarrassed by this. And therefore, we are now seeing lots of countries providing more arms than previously was anticipated. So I'm thinking particularly of France and Germany. But also you mentioned the Ukraine-NATO Council. It is important to have an institution that I presume will meet twice a year, as was previously the NATO-Russia Council. And that means that Ukraine will have an institutional engagement with NATO that will be very useful. So I put it in 3 points. The commitment to membership, pretty much zero. Commitment to arm Ukraine, better than expected. And there is a third, an institutional institution that is likely to turn out to be important over time. Looking upon NATO as such, I think that the failing party here is the US. 21 countries wanted to invite Ukraine as a member of NATO. 10 did not. And the leader there was the United States, followed by Germany. That is always the reluctant part. If the US had taken a different point, we would have seen a completely different communique. And it seems simply that the US delegation appears to have been out of touch with reality.
Appears to be out of touch with reality, or they simply don't want. Okay, what is the other reality they are looking?
Well, they thought that they should be thanked and got apparently upset by President Zelensky's very justified complaint about the communique. It sounded as if they hadn't read the NATO communique from Bucharest, as we all have done. And they didn't realize that everybody who's in favor of Ukraine will see has the needle moved forward. No, it hasn't. That's a problem. And this is the reality that they were unaware of. If you
unaware, or maybe, pardon me for interrupting, unaware or afraid. I mean, the war is raging right now in Europe. It is what is happening. And this is the reality that obviously cannot be ignored otherwise. I mean, there's no chance. But when you are overseas, you can maybe afford that for the time being. Let's say, let's wait and see what happens. Is that, what are they doing?
I would put it in different terms. I think that it's simply ignorance. The US decisive group is the National Security Council. These people are very young and they have not been much abroad. Most of them are former congressional staffers and not, as has often been the case previously, serious diplomats who have spent many years abroad. So these are spoiled American brats who don't know much about the places that are called abroad. And they don't necessarily read documents that were written 15 years ago.